I can't remember to forget you, the one and only love of my life.
Hi, I'm Debra Lyn, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. If you live outside this area, you may not have heard or seen much about the flood of May 2010. You may not have heard about the Grand Ole Opry and downtown Nashville being submerged. What you certainly haven't seen are the hundreds of small neighborhoods, just like mine. Thousands maybe if you factor in the 48 counties in Tennessee that were declared a federal disaster area. That's 48 of Tennessee's 95 counties. It's been 5 months since the flood, but the need here is still great. So that's the reason for this documentary, to revisit Nashville this past May and remind or make people aware that this is still a city in need. The destruction of the flood was massive. A record of 13.5 inches of rain fell from May 1st through 2nd in Nashville, and 23 people lost their lives. There are rumors as to why we didn't get the media coverage. People say it's because it wasn't in the poorest parts of Nashville. But that's not really true. It most certainly was. But the floodwaters did not discriminate. They flowed through all classes of neighborhoods, business districts, and cut off main interstates around Nashville. Some people say it was because we didn't go crazy and have a lot of looting, stealing, and rioting. I think this is due in part to our city officials, police department, and firemen who tirelessly work 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, and the good people who live here in Tennessee. Some people say that it's because of the oil spill and the attempted bombing in Times Square, or voter issues, environmental issues, or national security issues. You know, I don't know about that either. An entire region just suffered one of the most costly natural disasters in American history. There were tons of environmental issues. Cars, buildings, semis full of cargo, raw sewage, and death flowed through our streets, into our groundwater, and through the Cumberland River, a main artery of water in the center of this country. What I do know is that because our city was skimmed over, we didn't get the outpouring of support that many natural disasters you see on the news receive. The president didn't come to shake hands with the people or walk through their neighborhoods. We held our own. At least Vince Gill, along with many of our local songwriters, performers, and friends, got together for a flood relief telethon that aired on our local TV station. This led the way to many other similar community efforts to raise funds to help the flood victims. We did what the volunteer state does. We formed groups, and regular citizens came out and went into our neighborhoods to help each other rebuild. This film features our neighbors from right here in good old East Nashville, Tennessee, USA. This is their story. This is what you didn't see. To give you a first-hand account of the flood, I'd like to introduce you to Stacie Huckeba. Stacie is a photographer and video producer living in Nashville. She has over 25 years' experience as a professional photographer, and her work has been featured in news and print publications across the country. This past May, Stacie used her talents to document the effects of this flood that devastated much of Middle Tennessee. We'd like to welcome and say thank you to Stacie for sharing her comments and her incredible footage and photos with us. Welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me here.
You saw firsthand so much of the flooding and its effect on the individual people in Nashville. Is there one particular story or person that comes to mind when you think back on this?
I met a lot of people that deeply affected me and that will affect me for the rest of my life. It is still really hard for me to look back at the footage that I saw. I get really, really emotional. Even talking about it still makes me really emotional. I guess probably the most powerful person that I met was the first person that I met, who was really the caveat and the reason that I jumped into volunteering like I did. I came upon a house that the stairs had washed away completely, so it was kind of a challenge to get up to the house. But when you got up to the house, I knocked on the door, and I was greeted by a man, Joseph Barlow. He's an elderly gentleman who's handicapped. He and his wife are raising and have custody of all of their grandchildren, so he has 5 kids in the house who were all staying with a family member, luckily, during the floods. But he and his wife were in their home and trapped in their home during the floods, and their handicap ramps had washed away. And his wife had had a stroke, and she was battling with her 3rd bout of cancer. And when I knocked on that door and was hit with the smell that they had been trapped in this house with, he describes it as, you know, I assume that they thought that they were going to be dead. And he was just crying and crying that somebody was finally there to help, or that anybody was there to help. He had no idea. He had no idea that FEMA was here. He had no idea that there were volunteers that were trying to help. They were in their house with no electricity and no power and no phones, and just living with, I mean, the furniture was just, the whole place was just a wreck and soaked. And of course she was ill, and he was just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, saying, "I ain't gonna cry, I ain't gonna cry," as these tears were just swimming down his face. And if you ever have the honor to find yourself in a position to help someone who needs it that desperately, it will affect you for the rest of your life. And that really did truly affect me on a core level, and was what was the caveat for me going out and doing more volunteer work during those first early days.
They just got the water out from under the house last night with a sump pump. At about 8 o'clock, it was all out. You can feel the buckling on this floor. Yeah. All this will have to come down. I mean, they say it will dry out. It's just you're at a race between time and the mold.
Jeff and I are not originally from Nashville, but this is our home now. What we've heard is that Nashville pretty much takes care of its own. And although the flood was considered a disaster, there wasn't much controversy for the national media to focus on. Basically, the story was more positive, with people pitching in to help other people. What are your thoughts on this?
The folks down on Berwick Trail, which is a lot of the people in the footage that you saw from my video, those folks all were just interchangeable. I mean, they would go across the street, up the street, and down the street, and, you know, Sasha and her husband held like little cookouts and barbecues in their driveway where people could stop by and get something to eat or get something to drink, and then go back out and help other neighbors. And as devastating as it was a really beautiful thing to see. The media, I don't love the way the media handled it. I'm not going to blame the media. I think there are a myriad of reasons that we didn't get the coverage that we should have gotten. There were other things happening in this country and abroad. There was a bomb scare. The coastal Louisiana had just suffered. That was when the oil spill had first begun. Right. And I mean, you know, Kenny Chesney, he's a big, huge star, and the Grand Ole Opry is sort of a national institution, so of course those things got coverage. Mm-hmm. What was unfortunate were the hundreds of thousands of other people and families in, I don't remember what the final tally was. It was like 40-something counties that were declared a federal disaster. And those people never got mentioned. Those people got overlooked, and that was what was really difficult to see. But at the same time, because of that, you were able to see all of the beautiful community spirit. You were able to see, as corny as it sounds, you were able to see why the volunteer state is the volunteer state. I mean, people pitched in and helped each other, and it was really wonderful to watch. Mm-hmm. Is this the first time you've been back to your house?
No, came in, finally, Jason brought me in a canoe 2 days ago, and we rescued my cat. The water level had got up to right along here in the house. So your TVs and everything is, and bedding and everything is pretty well gone. All this stuff was jumbled up. This couch weighs a ton, and it was against this wall. Really? This long couch was up and down through here. Oh my God. And everything else is jumbled. We have essentially done nothing back here.
And you came in and just found it all this way?
Yeah. As you can see, there's very little that you can salvage out of this.
Your life and your memories and...
I know.